Alright, Rise of Shadows, spoiler Majubi, as the title says. Hey, Lubus. There's a cat right here on the desk, and she got startled, and now she's biting me because I started this. We're off to a great start. I'm gonna do this all in one take, for a change. I'm gonna try to go through it real fast. So let's just get going. Potion Vendor, it's like Fungal Enchanter. Fungal Enchanter is pretty good. This is the exact same effect for 2 less. Generally, when you take the same effect, you decrease the cost, it makes a better card. However, a 3/3 is an actual body, and a 1/1 isn't an actual body. So, I don't know. It seems worse than Fungal Enchanter, but it's cheaper. So, cheaper cards are usually better. So, we'll see. Who's a kitty girl? Toxfen. Good way to weaponize like 1/1 Murloc tokens. It's like a low tier Murloc, but if you're doing a Murloc deck, you probably might want to consider throwing that in. Arcane Servant, this is embarrassingly bad. I don't know why this card exists. Honestly, it's literally a River Crocolisk. It's literally a River Crocolisk. With some tribes, you can get away with doing that. Like Puddle Stomper. Puddle Stomper was legitimately a good card. 2 mana, 3/2, Murloc, no effect. Saw play because Murlocs as a tribe are understated and bad, so when you print one that's overstated, or rather, that is the baseline stats of just a minion that exists, that becomes the ability of the card. Elementals don't have that problem, so I don't know why they have a Crocolisk. I don't know who designed this, but they clearly don't understand like how just how cards work. They should probably give that job to somebody else. That's just an embarrassment. Dalaran Librarian. I should say it's really amusing how many cool like 2-drops there are. Kellis's leaving, everybody's been like, man, there are no 2-drops, and now they're just dumping 2-drops on us. So that's kind of refreshing. This is like Wailing Spirit or something. I don't know. The next card, 4 mana, 3/5 silence all your dudes. Obviously, this is cheaper. Cheaper's better. It only silences adjacent minions. Honestly, that's usually an advantage, though. Unless you're against, like, Freeze Mage, you normally don't want to silence all your guys. You just want to silence the guys you want to silence. I don't know. It's kind of weird. There's, like, a Silence Priest archetype, but it's a weird time because Humongous Razorleaf, I think is the card, is rotating. So that's sort of a weird timing. It feels like these cards should have been in the last set. Evil Cabaret. So the lackeys are all 1 mana 1/1s. It's with different battle cries. I think it's deal 2, discover a spell, give a guy +1, and attack and rush. Evolve a guy, and what am I missing? I don't even know what the other 4 I said were. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They're all good cards. Yeah, all the lackeys are really good cards, like better than cards you would put in your deck. So it's 2 mana 1/1 make a really good card. Historically, 2 mana really low statted cards have been really bad, like Jeweled Scarab. There's the card in Boomsday, the 2 mana 2/1 mech that made a spark. Stuff like that. It's not very good. This makes a better card than those have made. I don't know that that's going to make a difference. My gut says it's probably not, but I might be wrong there. Obviously, cards like Novice Engineer see play, but Novice Engineer only sees play in combo decks that are trying to cycle to something. This doesn't cycle to anything, so it makes me skeptical that it'll be good. Fuck. Hint Clan Hogsteed. This one is actually pretty good, I think. It's like 2 mana 1/1 deal 2 is how I'd look at it, which is pretty efficient, all things considered. And obviously you can just play it as a 2/1, not swinging anything, and it's just a sticky guy. Pretty nice combination of stats and tempo. I think this guy will actually be quite useful. Mana Reservoir. So they've done this card before. This is like the cheapest version of it. Spell damage is way better when you pay less for it, so that you can afford to play spells with it, obviously. So this is the best version of big 0x minion with spell damage. I don't know that that's actually going to make it playable, but it's getting better. They're getting closer to a card people might want to play, I guess. It's an inoffensive pack filler, but probably bad. 2 mana, 3/2, draw a card is insane. How do you have spell damage, though? They're pushing spell damage a lot in this set, which is kind of cool. But historically, it's pretty hard to have spell damage out to trigger things like this. But we do have, the downside is just a Raptor. Just 2 mana, 3/2 is reasonable. It's not good, but it's reasonable when you don't get it. So it's like, if you can get this to trigger about half the time, I think this is probably worth putting in the deck. So it's just a question of how consistent you can get having spell damage. Sunreaver Spy, if you have a secret, makes your guy big. Obviously, Secret Paladin, this goes in it. I think it's a little too slow for Secret Mage. Or no, it's a little awkward. Not too slow. It's too fast, actually. For Secret Mage obviously typically plays their secrets on turn 3. This comes down on turn 2. That doesn't line up very well. And Secret Hunter's never really been a thing in terms of playing stuff like this. But yeah, Secret Paladin, it's just an obvious good kind of redundancy to your Secret Keepers. Faceless Rager, card's pretty bad, I think. I think it's pretty bad, because you think about these things like in curve, right? So your best case, realistically, is that you play like a 2/3, and then you make a 3 mana 5/3, which is overstated. But if they just printed a 3 mana 5/3, it would see play, but it wouldn't see that much play. And that's your realistic, like, best case scenario, right? So I don't know how good this will actually be. That being said, there's a card we're getting to. The 5/6 guy, and there's also obviously Ancient Watcher. So like, if Silence Priest is a thing, you can play like your Yeti on turn 2, and then a 3 mana 5/5, and maybe there's enough pieces to that deck that this actually fits into it. Because obviously a 3 mana 5/5 in a mid-range priest deck with stuff like Circle of Healing can be abused pretty heavily. Flight Master, it's another one of these symmetrical spider tanks. I think this is the best one. These cards always want you to be ahead on the board. It's more consistent. There's no RNG. It's entirely consistent. You always know what everyone is getting. You get the benefits immediately for both of you. You can deal with their thing immediately, so you can plan to kill their token. And you get 2 bodies, and presumably put this in a deck that can use multiple bodies. So I think this is the best of these, like, I play a spider tank and we both get something cards. I don't know if this one will see play. They haven't really in the past, other than Spellslinger, I think was the card. But it's cool. It's a cool design. Hinge Clan Snake, bad. Probably worse than Panther, and Panther sees 0 play. So you probably should not play that. It's cool they remember that stealth is a keyword, though. They usually forget. So this is a fixed Tar Creeper, Proud Defender. It's a Tar Creeper that aggro decks can't really utilize very well because they want to have other minions out. And if you're not an aggro deck, and this is the only guy, it's a 4 mana 4/6 taunt. That's really good. So I think this card's probably really good and really well designed. Like, I think they've actually fixed the Tar Creeper problem. And I look forward to dying to aggro decks running this anyways next week. Because they always find a way. Alright, Soldier of Fortune. This is another one of these big overstated guys with the downside. Historically, these are bad. This one's interesting, though, because the downside, normally you get the downside just from playing the card, right? Like, Hungry Dragon gave your guy a minion right away. Is it Hoarding Drake or something? I don't know. When it dies, they get the coins. Like, just playing the card is bad for you. This one, just playing the card is not bad for you. It's only bad when you get to use the card when it swings. So if you just play it and then they answer it, you got to play a 4 mana 5/6 totally for free. No strings attached whatsoever. It only gives them anything when you get to swing in with it, which is really interesting, and that might be like the tipping point that allows this this type of card to finally see some play. That being said, giving your opponent a coin's really bad, and a 4-mana 5/6 is really good, but it's not like insanely good, right? We live in a world where like 3-mana 8/8s, 4-mana 7/7 taunt. Like these are just normal things that you're expected to be able to deal with on ladder. So just like a random 4-mana 5/6 coming down is not really the end of the world most of the time. So I don't know. But I'm interested to see how this one works out, because I don't think we've seen one before where the downside kicks in after you get to really utilize the card. Traveling Healer, it looks pretty bad. I think it's better than it looks, though. Cthulhu's Chosen was like a reasonable card that you could actually just play even outside Cthulhu decks at the time. Just for a 4-mana 4/2 Divine Shield body was just good enough. It was like the 30th card in your deck and probably the first you'd cut, but it was like reasonable enough. It's close enough to a Shredder. This is obviously the difference between 3 and 4 attacks pretty substantial, but you get the healing. I think this is probably better than Earth Ring Farseer, and I'd say this is usually better than Shroom Brewer. Honestly, I think I'd usually rather have a 3/2 Divine Shield than a 4/4. And the difference in 3 and 4 health is not that substantial. So it's just like any decks that would, because Shroom Brewer is rotating obviously, so any decks that would be running that, or Earth and Ring can look at this now. It's not like a great card, but I think it's more reasonable than it looks like. Violet Spellsword, they're pushing these hold spell cards lately. I think like the Boomsday one, this won't see any play. You need to be holding 2 spells to break even, and you wouldn't put a vanilla 4-mana 3/6 in your deck anyways. So you need to be holding 3 spells on turn 4 in your minion tempo deck, and when are you doing that? So I just don't see this coming together. Cool card art. 5-mana 5/4 Divine Shield is another card that I think is better than it looks. So it's basically, the way you think about it is it's a 5/1 that dies and brings back a 5/4. And that compares pretty favorably to Piloted Shredder for +1 mana. This card's honestly not terrible. However, it costs 5 mana. And when you get to the 5 mana range, even really when you get to the 4 mana cost range, cards can't just be good. A good card that costs 5 does not see any play. It has to be crazy good. It has to be a great card. I don't think this card is anywhere approaching great. It's good. I don't think it's great, so I'd be surprised if it sees play in any deck just for that reason. But like it's one of those cards where it's like it's just good. It's so hard to play mediocre 5-cost things in this game. Safeguard, it's pretty interesting compared to like Hungry Etten. It's sort of a 6-mana 4/10 taunt. The downside with Hungry Etten is they got a random 2-drop. The downside here is that the health is split between 2 bodies, and the second body doesn't have an attack value, right? So you get your 4/10 for the first 5 hit points, and then it becomes a 0/10. Like the attack kind of turns off. That being said, the downside can be an upside sometimes. It's less vulnerable to single target removal. If they like shield slam this for 55 damage, that would kill your Hungry Etten outright. But obviously you'd still get your 0.5 speed bump in the trade here. I think both sides have the mech tag, so that can be utilized. Is it Death Rattle? That can be utilized. It's not like an amazing card. I think it's a pretty reasonable 6-mana taunt though, and I'm definitely going to be looking to try it in like Mech Warrior and Mech Rattle Hunter just to see if there's anything there. I think you definitely want to be able to exploit the Death Rattle and Mech tags to justify this, but it's just like so close to the fringe of just being like reasonable stats on a 6-mana taunt. Eccentric Scribe, I can't find the scroll token. I haven't seen them. I'm assuming they're just 1/1s. They sound like they'd be fancier than that, but I think they're just 1/1s. So this is kind of like a neutral high main, is how I'd look at it. You'd lose the beast tag, you lose 1 health there. But other than that, you're basically getting the same amount of stats. You're getting more bodies, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad. I think it's going to be bad because of a card we're going to see later on, which I think is going to make whirlwind effects pretty prevalent in the meta, which should make it pretty easy to clean up those 1/1s. But, I mean, it's a neutral high main. High main is still seeing play today. There's always a chance cards like this might find a home somewhere, but it's not amazing. And because it's lacking any sort of tribal tags, it's slim. I heard noises. Violet Warden, it's an Archmage with Taunt. 6 mana 4/7 taunts, honestly, that sounds just good. It's kind of hard to use the spell damage with it, but if it sticks, I don't know. This card's honestly just okay. Not great, but she's hearing noises too. What is going on out there? It's just like thumping and shit. Heroic Innkeeper. So yeah, Violet. I got distracted. I think the card's good, but like not great, so it won't see play. Just to clarify, I'm not like, oh yeah, that's a great card. I think it's another one of the like Dalaran Crusader. It's good. Good 6-drops don't see play, so it probably won't see play. But it's interesting. It's more efficient. There's always a chance that a card like that's going to find a home. There's no chance this will find a home, though. You need to have 2 friendly minions on the board to make it an Ironbark Protector. Ironbark Protector is a bad card, so you need 3 minions on the board when you go into turn 8 to play your big taunt to pull ahead from a bad card you wouldn't put in your deck. That's terrible. That's never happening. Terrible card. Also, what is going on in this set? I have no idea. Just gonna throw this out now. I have no idea what the fuck the theme of this set is. It's like there's an evil organization of 5 villains coming together. I get that. But where are we and what are we doing? There's like random heroic innkeepers and like knights and shit. Are these the people opposing the evil organization? There's like turtle healers. This is the first set where I have no idea what's going on. Granted, I haven't seen the spoiler video, like the showcase, but I never watch those. They're normally really good at selling like the story of a set. I have no idea where the fuck we are or what we're doing anymore. I've totally lost the plot. It's just like kobolds and shit fighting innkeepers. I don't know what's going on, man. Burly Shovelfist. It's like Charged Devilsaur. I think it's quite a bit worse than Charged Devilsaur. There's a big difference between 8 and 9 mana. There's not a big difference between 7/7 and 9/9. Not as big as you'd think. And this one can't be like cheated into play to do cool stuff, and it doesn't have any subtypes, but it's just a big rush thing. Play Undasta instead, right? But if you don't have Undasta and you want a big rush guy, you can do worse. Rush is really good, but it's a bad card. Yeah, Arcane Watcher. This card's really cool. I love these statues that like can become active when conditions are met. I still think it's pretty hard to have spell damage, even as much as they pushed it in the set. 3 mana 5/6 is a pretty good stat line. It's not insane though. Razor Leaf was a 4/8, I think. And that was like barely good enough to justify Silence Priest for a while. So that should give you a frame of reference for like how big a statue needs to be. But we'll talk more about this later. There's a 4 mana priest spell that makes it more interesting. But it's a cool card. I like the idea. I always like these cards. There's a spider tank that shields you for 1 turn. Pretty cool card. It's kind of hard to use though. It's hard to time. And I don't know what it protects you from, other than like Burn Mage, Malagos, and like what else. I don't know what is actually protecting you from, but I like cards like this, and there's a very low cost to putting it in the deck. Hecklebot, I think, is a good card. It's sort of a Dirty Rat Deathlord effect. Against aggro decks, you just get something small and it's a speed bump. Against combo decks, you can just completely fuck their combo up. It's a lot of stats, obviously. 3/8 taunt. It's a mech going into turn 5, which is important. I just want to say I hate the design of cards like this. I think Dirty Red is a good card, but it's a terrible design. It turns games, it turns strategic games into coin flips. Like the entire game can just come down to, oop, I got a good outcome or I got a bad outcome, and it's fucking stupid. And it's really disheartening because we literally just had like a Mojo Master Zihi in the last set. It seemed like they were going in a direction where they finally understood that, and like we have Spellward Jeweler right here. Like, it seems like they get that this is not a good way to add counterplay to the game. This is not a good solution to making up for no instant speed interaction. It seems like they're like on the cusp of understanding that, and then they just gave us 2 Dirty Rats this set. And it's really upsetting, and Discord just did something. What the fuck? Moot. Okay. But I think the card's good. That's just a little rant there. Portal Keeper, it's an Ice Rager for 4 mana, so that's really bad. But it's like Feldore's Strider. It's way worse than Feldore's Strider, but Feldore's Strider is a class card and one of the best 4-drops ever printed in the history of the game. Like, one of the most insane cards ever printed, period. So being worse than that's not a big deal. I think this card's maybe bad. It's really hard to evaluate. So when you shuffle stuff into the deck, there's always a chance you're just never going to draw it. So you want the thing you play to be like reasonable enough that you're going to be okay. You're not going to just lose from playing it. You're playing a 4-mana 5/2, which is ridiculously bad. And then even when you get this stuff, 2/2 Rush is like good, and it can do stuff immediately, which is really cool. But if you only get like one of those, is that worth it? I kind of feel like you need to get all of them, and pretty soon, to make up for the huge tempo loss, and probably value loss as well from just ever playing this card. I'm definitely going to mess around with it. It might be cool. It's definitely a cool design, but I think the stats are just so bad that unfortunately it's just not going to be. I want it to be good, but I think the stats are just too bad for it, unfortunately. Recurring Villain, I don't think this card's meant to be good. It's just a cute flavor card. It's like Zarek. Zarek is ridiculously bad. This is a worse version of Zarek, so don't play it. Like, that's just a bad card, but it's cute. You know, it's fine. Sunreaver Warmage. So this is like Blackwing Corruptor, which is still good enough to see play in Wild. And when you meet the condition, this is better, right? Like 4/4 and 5/4 doesn't really matter, but the difference between 3 and 4 damage does matter quite a bit, especially on turn 5. So it's a much more powerful effect. So the only question then is how much more difficult is it to be holding an expensive big spell versus holding a dragon? Really depends on the deck you're playing. But if you can meet this condition, which based on playing dragon decks over the years is like, you want to be looking in like the 6 to 8 range to be consistently hitting things. I don't know what class or deck can be holding 6 to 8 big spells. Like, I don't know who has that. But if anyone has that, then this is the guy right here. You just throw them in there and it'll do great things. Mad Summoner. This is a really weird card. So it's a board flood card, but the way it works is you want to play it against another board flood deck when you don't have the board. Like, you want them to have fewer empty slots than you do. So you play it against somebody who has more minions so that they get fewer 1/1s and then you get more 1/1s. It's like, when is that going to happen? You would put this in a deck where you want to flood the board and you want to play it when you failed to do the one thing you're trying to do. And it's a 6-mana 4/4 and you're getting imps. I don't know. It's a fucking weird card. It's a Mad Summoner. He's crazy. It don't make no sense. Exotic Bouncer. This is actually a pretty cool card. 3-cost beasts are actually pretty good. You can get taunts, you can get stealth guys. I think the rotation hurts it a bit. You don't have like fledglings and stuff. But you have Mukla, you have Ornery Tortoise, Shell guy. Yeah, like there are some pretty good things. The problem is it's a 7-mana card that wants you to be casting spells. And it's like, where do you do that? People have been saying like you put it in like Khadgar Mage, but why aren't you just playing Antonidas and then killing your opponent the next turn? You know, it's just kind of weird. I don't know where you put this. You put it in like a Miracle Rogue type thing. I'd rather play an Auctioneer. It's really hard for Rogue to even get to Auctioneer, let alone get to Exotic Amount Seller to summon some bears. Cool design. Underbelly Ooze, I'm going to say right now, is the best card in the entire set. I think this is going to define the meta. And I think if any card gets nerfed 2 months from now, it's going to be this one. I think this is very much like Corridor Creeper. Obviously a very different kind of effect, different kind of power level. It's strong for different reasons, but I think this card's actually completely insane. So it's Grim. We've seen this before. It's Grim Patron, right? The difference, so it's 2 more mana, and you're like, oh, well, that balances it. But the problem is that this is the kind of effect that becomes monumentally more powerful the more health something has. So a Grim Patron is a 3/3 with this effect, for anyone unfamiliar. And that's manageable. That's a very powerful card. Even today you can play Grim Patron Warrior without Warsong Commander. You can just play Patrons, fill the board with Patrons, and win the game just off of that. Even in a world with like a Duskbreaker, Psychic Scream, and shit like that, you know? Yeah, this is... those are 3/3s, and it's pretty easy to kill 3 health things in one hit, and that's still playable. 3/5s are really, really, really hard to kill in one hit. Less so in Wild, but in Standard, it's also worth pointing out we're losing a ton of AoE. Psychic Scream's rotating, like, just AoE in general is going away. Duskbreaker's going away, Spirit Lash is going away, Defile's going away. Who's that kitty? Who's that kitty? Meteor's going away. Just a bunch of shit's going away. Not all of those would obviously answer this. You wouldn't Spirit Lash this. But it's just worth pointing out that AoE in general is going away, and there really aren't many good answers to this in general. There's like Brawl, there's Hagatha's Scheme if you've held it for 5 or more turns. There's Twisting Nether. Is that it? Is there like anything else? There's what is it called? The 6-mana warrior spell that jousts a weapon and deals the damage. You could run like a Super Colliders and Gore Howls and that card to answer this. It's just like it's really hard to deal 5 damage to the whole board. It's really difficult. So I don't know. This card's honestly terrifying. I'm definitely going to be playing this, building this as like the very first deck. I think this is going to be like the Baku Paladin Shudderwalk Shaman of release day. I don't know if it will remain as powerful. I think that it probably will. I think after like a few thousand people get a chance to refine it over a day or two, it's going to be completely insane. Probably in Warrior, right? You have to keep in mind Warpath is around. There's a new 1-mana Blood to Ichor effect around. Whirlwind's always around. There's a lot of ways to damage these things, and there's not a lot of answers to it. This card is fucking terrifying, and it will probably get nerfed. But until then, this is our new master. Some weird slime thing. I don't even know what the fuck this is. It's an Underbelly Ooze. Underbelly of what? Don't know. Alright. Tunnel Blaster is like Chill Maw without the dragon condition, and it's not legendary, so it's more consistent. Slightly worse stats, not significantly worse stats. I think this card's really good. I also don't think this card will see any play right now, because Underbelly Ooze is being printed at the same time. They both cost 7. This lines up super poorly against that. So this is not going to be good right now. But I think the card's great. It's just unfortunate that they exist together. Magic Carpet is really fucking weird. I don't know who's playing 1-cost minions. You're buffing them a little bit and rushing. It's a 3-mana 1/6. Fucking strange card. I don't know what's going on with that. If I open them, I would never craft this. If I open them, I'll try it in like a Hobgoblin Zoo in Wild. But other than that, I don't know what the fuck this card is. Hinge Clan Hag, pretty cool. Make tiny amalgams. This is better statted than, is it Grim Necromancer or something like that? The 4-mana 2/4 that does this. So you'd rather have a 3/3 than a 2/4 in like an aggressive deck, right? Generally. And the amalgams having all the minion types is actually pretty relevant. It's leading into turn 5, so you have Ziliax Wargear, you have Murloc Warleader, you have Houndmaster, Crackling Razor Maw, which is rotating, but in Wild you can still play this, obviously. And Nightmare Amalgam's still in Standard, so you can actually have, you know, more of these tribal synergy things. There's also I was going to say there's the new Shaman Murloc, but I think that's when you play, not summon, so that never mind. Anyway, it's a reasonable card. Pretty cool. Azurite Elemental, very, very cool art. Very slow. So slow, man. It's a 5-mana 2/7 that does nothing until next turn. Spell damage, you want to play the card, and then play the spell and do the stuff. You're just playing a 2/7, they're just going to kill it, it's going to do nothing. It's ridiculously slow. I mean, I know why cards like this exist. It's the dream, it's the Timmy card where like, alright, I'm going to play this, I'm going to protect it for like 10 turns, and then win the game with one spell. It's going to be so cool. But it's never going to happen, Timmy, I'm sorry. Dirty Rat for spells. It's nice that we have spell interaction. It sucks that it's a Dirty Rat effect. Dirty Rat effects, as I ranted about earlier, are fucking stupid and turn the game into coin flips and suck all strategy of everything, and they're really frustrating. So it's a really shitty design, but, you know, at least you have a way to interact with spells, I guess. I don't know. They could just print Lothab. Give us a new Lothab. Why is that hard? Anyways, Portal Overfiend, I think this is a lot better than the 4-drop version. Even though it's technically, like, 6-mana 5/6 is generally worse than like a 4-mana 5/2. It's easier to play an understated cheap card, right? But I think 5/2 is just ridiculously bad. 5/6 is probably going to trade for like a card or two. It's not that slow. If either of them works out, I think this is the one. But I don't know. I want these cards to be good. They're very cool. Batterhead's probably bad. If you're against, like, only, like, a token druid or something, then, yeah, this is going to slaughter them. But it's probably bad. It's so hard to kill something, even with Rush. It's so hard to just come down and kill something with only 3 attack, let alone multiple things. Whirlwind Tempest. This card is bafflingly, insanely bad. I want to point out, this does not actually have Wind Fury itself. This is an 8-mana 6/6 with no effect. This is an 8-mana 6/6, period. There's just nothing else happening. You just spent 8 mana on a 6/6 that does nothing. I know it says it does something, but when have you ever had a Whirlwind minion on the board? Like, honestly, has that ever happened? Literally, the last time I did that was Whirling Zap-O-Matic back in GVG. So if you want to go back in time and play Aggro Shaman, and somehow just play an 8-mana 6/6 in that, you can push an extra 6 damage. Nice! I don't know. I mean, it's cool that they remember Mega Wind Fury is a thing that's in the game, and it's a cool idea, but this is just appallingly terrible in every conceivable way. I don't know what the fuck this is doing. Big Bad Archmage. It's a Big Bad Archmage. I mean, it's a lot of stats. 10 mana 6/6, and then you summon another guy. It's just random 6-cost minions are really bad. There's still a lot of 3/3s and 3/4s. I think actually post-rotation. I didn't do an RNG analysis today because I was lazy. I didn't feel like Normally I look through all of the sets that are rotating, all the sets that are still in, and see how things are shaking out, because it's really important to understand the card pool as a whole to evaluate card effects, because you're rarely playing just the 30 cards in your deck in this game. You're playing the full set, because there's just so much RNG in like card generation stuff like this. But I didn't do that because I didn't feel like it, so I don't know, but I believe 6 drops are still extremely bad. There's 2 mage 3/3s, there's a 3/4 in druid. There's just like there's a bunch of 6 mana low statted no effect guys. There's also like Arcane Dynamo or whatever. There's a bunch. So this card's bad. I mean, even if it were like 10 mana 6/6 summon a 6/6 at the end of your turn, that would probably still be too bad to see play, but it's actually worse than that. Probably need to speed up. How long has this been? It's only 36 minutes. Do like a nice 4-hour video. Yeah, Archmage Vargoth, this card is really, 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 really good. I also think we're getting it for free. I think they said we're getting it like maybe this weekend or something, like we did with 8 mana 6/6 treasure chest guy. I can't even remember his name right now. I'm not all here today. It was a cat. I'm amazed she's still laying here. Yeah, the card's really good. The card's really good. Obviously, you have to be careful. So you want to cast one spell with it. You don't want to do multiples, and you don't want to cast something that targets. But there's a lot of really good spells that meet those definitions. Obviously, it doesn't work with secrets. But like Hunter has the new Unleash the Beast thing. 6 mana, summon a 5/5 rush. Get an extra 5/5 and another, because it's a twin spell card, and get the copy back in your hands pretty good. Obviously, you can use this with AoEs. Rogue, I think, like Thief Rogue, this should be really good. You can play it with Fan of Knives to draw an extra card, deal more damage. You can play it with Academic Espionage, which I think is more realistic than Elec. Augmented Elec is kind of a meme card because it's not very good on its own, and you don't normally need to shuffle that many cards in your deck. And obviously Strider's rotating, so you have nothing else to shuffle. So I think you would put one of this guy in instead of that, so that in the games where you do need even more copies of Academic Espionage for some reason, you have access to that, but then the rest of the time you can use it on practical things like Fan of Knives, Sap. Sap specifies enemy minion, so you can sap 2 enemy guys. It's never going to randomly sap one of your people. Basically, any spell where you can control the conditions, raiding party. Yeah, just look through the classes. Any class that doesn't target, cast it with those spells. Very powerful card. Barista Lynchen. Again, what the fuck is the theme? Why is there like a baristas fighting an evil organization? Anyways, whatever, Blizzard, we'll do it. Add a copy of each other battle prevents your hand. Obviously, a very powerful effect. I don't know what you use this for in standard, but I'm sure it'll find a home somewhere. It's just a powerful effect. Chef Nomi sounds really powerful. I think it's actually pretty bad. Maybe in a year it'll be more interesting. There she goes. In a year it'll be more interesting when Mecha'thun rotates. But right now Mecha'thun exists. So if you're emptying your deck consistently enough to play this, and obviously you would never play just a 7 mana 6/6 with no effect, just play Mecha'thun and then kill your opponent instead of making a bunch of stats that hopefully kill your opponent next turn. If they don't kill you or remove them or something, So I don't know. It's a cool card, and like maybe if like a Baku Rogue weren't rotating, that could be a thing. Maybe like you draw your entire deck with Myras and then you play this to like kill them. So maybe it'll find a home in like an odd deck, but because it is like an odd Mecha'thun effect. But it seems bad. Or at least it seems like it's competing with something that just wins the game outright instead of making stats, which is usually better. It's better to win than to make a bunch of stats. Stats are good, but they're not that good. Archivist Elysiana. This is my favorite card in the set, I think. But I don't actually understand it. So, as written, discover 5 cards, and then it replaces your deck with 2 copies of each. This is written the exact same way as Myra, which gives you a copy of the card you discover. So, as written, you play this, you discover 5 cards, you get those cards in your hand, and then you get a new 10-card deck with 2 copies of each. I don't know if that's actually what happens, though, because everyone else I've heard talking about the card has treated it as though it's only the deck. I don't know if Blizzard has said one way or another. We're probably just going to have to find out. It's really irritating they don't... Like, I get minimal wording is fine, but what I don't get is why you would use the exact same syntax for 2 completely different effects. Like, change it slightly. Like, if it's the replace only, be like, discover 5 cards to replace your deck with 5 copies of each. Like, make it one sentence, and now it's differentiated from the Myra style. Discover a thing, and you get a bonus effect based off what you discover. Or maybe it does just give you the cards. I honestly don't know. It's good either way. It's obviously completely ridiculous if you also get the cards in your hand. You play it in basically anything. You play it in it's not like game winning on its own, but it's powerful. You play it in like an aggro deck. You don't care what your actual deck is. You're going to play it to try to get a bunch of burn spells and stuff to close out the game once you're out of cards. But I don't know that if it works like that, because their cards don't say what they are, which makes it hard to review them. Geppetto, get a 1-mana Malygos somehow, and then kill your opponent. I don't know how you do it, but there's got to be a way to do it, right? You just have like this, Alex, and Malygos, maybe in like a plot twist deck or something, so you can shuffle them back in later. That actually sounds pretty reasonable. The problem is you couldn't... The problem is you can't plot twist and save the Geppetto and then play the Geppetto after the plot twist. The mana works out, but you'd have to plot twist, get Geppetto back, and not the other cards. I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to break this card. Somebody will find it, and it'll do gross things, and those gross things will always involve Malygos until he gets Hall of Famed. Acorn Bearer. So they're kind of pushing Token Druid. I think this is an above average 1-drop, obviously. I think it's better than Firefly, honestly. I think this is better than Firefly, worse than Springpaw. Obviously Springpaw's in a different class, so does it really matter? It's just a good card. If you're gonna play any sort of Token Druid deck, if you want 1-drops in any form, you play Acorn Bearers. It's just, yeah, it's a guy that gives you more guys. These cards have been good. Crystal Power is weird. It's way worse than Living Roots. Can't go face. Healing is a lot worse than making 2 1/1s. It's a weird card. Obviously, it's meant to enable their heal druid stuff, but this is the only card that does that. They added a bunch of heal 5, and then how do we do that in druid? Because we have like healing touch. So these cards, I mean, obviously we're going to get into them, but the cards are all about making tempo plays and generating value. And Healing Touch doesn't do either of those things. So it doesn't fit into the archetype. And then you have the 7-mana Ancient of Lore. Like, you don't want your 7-drop to enable your 5-drops. Like, it's just weird. It's weird. I was expecting at least one more Heal for 5 effect. This is the only one we got. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. It's like Freeze Shaman. They just, like, had an idea, but they arbitrarily limit themselves to 10 card slots per class, and they never flesh out their ideas. We don't even have, like, a neutral heal for 5. It's just bizarre, man. I don't know. But the card itself is fine. It's worse than all previous versions of this 1-mana deal 2 in Druid. Like, this is the worst one they've got, but, I mean, it's... All the other ones aren't in Standard, so it'll probably see play in something. If Druid sees play at all. Honestly, Druid's kind of in a bad spot. Crystal Song Portal. So you play this when you're out of stuff to get 3 things. It's discover a druid minion, which I think is... Again, I didn't do an RNG analysis, which I really should have. I think that's better than just discover a minion in general. I think druid minions, on average, are reasonably high quality. Or maybe not high, but they're reasonable quality. So yeah, you play this in like an aggro deck, a tempo deck to refill. Refill your hand. I'm getting kind of thirsty. Dreamway Guardians. This is like Echoing Ooze. We've actually had this card before. Here you have Lifesteal instead of it splitting and saving buffs, which was the other effect. That card saw a little bit of play, but not very much, and it sees no play now. So I've seen some people getting excited about this, like it's a lot of stats, but it's not as much as you'd think. We've had this before, and it wasn't that good. That being said, it is a lifesteal, and we have an interesting curve with this one. We have Crystallizer, my pick for best design card of the last year, for anyone who watched that, and spoilers, if you haven't. So you can do turn 1 Crystallizer, turn 2 Dreamway Guardians, turn 3 Life Weaver, swing with these people, heal for 2, get 2 random druid cards, and that's just like a really efficient, really powerful 3-turn opening curve. Like, that's just really strong. So if you can do that and make a deck around having that be a part of it, then this could be a very useful kind of tool in the thing, but this is not the star of the show. 2 mana for 2/1/2s is just not as good as you think it is. It sounds like a lot of stats, but we had this before. Back in Nax, when the card pool was way more limited, the power level of the game was way lower, and it still wasn't good enough. So I can't imagine it's going to suddenly be great now. Keeper Steladris, this is better than Fandral. This is just better than Fandral. You don't get both effects right away. This is true. But it costs 2 less. it costs 2 less. So you're losing the tempo because you don't get both effects, but you're gaining the tempo because it costs 2 less, which is substantial. That's a really big deal. You can like Steladris Wrath on 4. You can't really Fandral plus anything on 4. Obviously, this is way worse than Nourish, but Fandral into Nourish was kind of a Christmassy, like hope this happens strategy. Anyways, if they you couldn't do it in the same turn, obviously. So I don't think that's a fair way to evaluate it. And for like every other thing that you'd use Fandral for, this is just better. It's just better. It's a better Fandral. Like Jade Idol, right? Fandral is 5 mana. You play the Fandral, you make 1 Jade guy, you shuffle in 3. Steladris is 5 mana, make 2 Jade Golems and shuffle them in. So it's just better there, right? It's just better there, and you have the option to play it on turn 3 and then space the stuff out later. It's just this card is crazy. This card's crazy. This is one of the best cards in the set, honestly. Blessing of the Ancients. It's just buff your guys. You get to do it twice. It's just a reasonable card. If Token Druid's a thing, and I think Token Druid might be a thing. Because again, AoE is being significantly reduced. A lot of the AoE has gone out of the game, and they printed like no AoE at all. There's the neutral taunt guy, there's Hagatha's Scheme, and that's like, yeah, I think there's 1 or 2 other cards I'm forgetting. There's like no AoE in Standard after this rotation. They just like sucked it all out of the game. Which means, and that hero cards are obviously gone as well. Gin and Baku are gone. So incremental, like I make a bunch of value trades style Zoo, suddenly gets way better because you can't clear the board as easily to punish it, and you don't have infinite value, so those tiny value gains are more impactful. So in that environment, historically, Token Druid's been pretty good. I think they still have some good cards They're losing a lot, but they still have some good stuff. And obviously we're gaining some good stuff like Acorn. Acorn Bear, obviously the curve of Crystallizer into these might fit into that and be good. You have the Keeper, Steladris, with like Power of the Wild and stuff. And this might be like your 30th card in the deck if you just need more ways to pump your stuff. It's not bad. It's not exciting. It just is what it is, you know? We already kind of talked about this one. It's sort of hard to heal in Druid, but that the curve, we're just going to call it the curve, is there. So if that turns out to be good, and honestly, just like 3 mana 2/5 is not bad. So if you just get it some of the time, where you're just getting random Druid cards, which even post rotation are pretty good. I think they're above average. Yeah, it's fine. Crystal Stag, 5 mana 4/4 Rush is pretty okay. It's pretty okay. Like we had this with what's his face, the warrior guy. Defend the gates, protect Gilneas. I can't remember his name, but yeah, and he's good. Obviously, he has the buff, right? He has the self buff, but like it's just a good card. Even when you don't have that, just 5 mana 4/4 Rush. Rush is really good, which is kind of important. Rush is really fucking good. It's the best thing about Zilliax, which is one of the best cards in Standard right now. And that's before rotation. So, it's okay. It's pretty okay. It's just a reasonable card when you don't get the Battlecry. And when you get the Battlecry, it's insane. 2 4/4 rushes is just like an insane tempo swing. The problem is, how do you do that in Druid? Right? These aren't going to get you there. These are going to swing like once each and then die. Crystal Power gets you there, but you only have 2 copies in the deck, and then that's it. There's no other cards in Druid. They'd heal you for 5. They just like forgot to print them. Like they could have taken this out and given us another something, or this one, or something. You know, just like what's going on, Blizzard? What's with all these incomplete archetypes? Or give us a neutral card that heals for 5. Like how hard is that? So I just don't see how this comes together consistently enough. You don't want to like healing touch on turn 3 and then like self-damage and then healing touch yourself, and it's just a clusterfuck, and then you come back with Crystal Stag. That seems bad. But if you can get this to work, then the card is just amazing. And it's like good enough almost on its own. So if there's even a chance, you should definitely look into it, but it seems... Whew, I need to speed up. We're only in Druid. Lucent Bark, similar problem. If you can bring it back a bunch of times, it's good. If you can't, it's bad. It's worse than Ancient of War, obviously, when you only play 1. So it's just how much healing do you have? Druid has none. Forest Aid, worse than Living Mana, but that's rotating. And again, AoE is on the decline. They've sucked a lot of AoE out of the game, so you can play this. They have a hard time dealing with it because they have fewer AoE options available, period. And then you get to play it again next turn when they do deal with it. So it's a pretty powerful top end to Token Druid, potentially. I think this card might actually be pretty reasonable. Rapid Fire Druid. Hunter doesn't have a bolt right now. They don't really get bolts in general since Quick Shot. So 2 mana deal 2 is just like that's just kind of par for the course in Hunter. This goes face, which the last 2 mana deal 2 didn't, and it can be split into multiple turns. It can be 1 mana deal 1. It benefits multiple times from spell damage, which might be relevant with the legendary. I think it's just a good card. It's not amazing, but it's just a good card. Shimmerfly, this is like the worst of the 1 mana create a spell cards, but those cards are all pretty reasonable. Obviously, you'd want to play like Springpaw and stuff before this, but we're losing a bunch of... We're losing like Jeweled Macaw, we're losing Firefly. So maybe there's room for this to creep in there. This is really good in Wild for Deathstalker Rexar. You have infinite minions, but you can often run out of spells, which gives you more versatile answers. So this can be a cool way to like sneak those in to get a few spells back to then work into your game plan. in those games in Wild. 9 lives, pretty cool card. There's a lot of Death Rattle support leaving. Like, we really only have the Firework Technician, I think is the name. So you'd want to think about this in like a mech rattle thing. So like Spider Bomb. This is a deadly shot, and then you create a Spider Bomb. That's really good. Mechanical Whelp. You make a 3-mana 7/7 and get another Whelp in your hand. That's pretty good. Even like the safe thing. 3 mana, make an 0/5 and get another safe in your hand. Like, that's honestly fine. I'd be happy with that. Or like a 3 mana, draw a mech and get one of these. Like, these are all pretty reasonable. It's just a question of whether the deck comes together or not. That's really all it is. Urzatron helps that deck come together. It's just a pretty good card. That's it. Not really nothing else to say there. It helps you refill your hand. It gives you more death rattles to activate with your guy. It gives you more mechs to do stuff. It's just fine. Arcane Fletcher, weird. Weird. Whenever you play a 1-cost minion, you draw a spell from your deck. Drawing spells is weird in Hunter. Playing 1-cost minions is weirder than you'd think in Hunter. Like, you play 1-drops, but you don't play that many. It does... it's worth pointing out they have a lot of Lynxes from Halazi and Springpaw, so you can play, like, 6 Lynxes with this in one turn. Pretty reasonably to draw 6 spells. It's just... It's weird, and it seems like a lot of work when you could just be playing Master's Call. Because that's not going anywhere, right? So it's like, if you really need card draw in Hunter, you're probably going to be doing that. This seems like a lot of work to do something weird. Weird. Mark Shot is just good. Kill a guy, make a spell to do stuff. Great card. Hunting Party, weird. It's probably going to be used in some like janky meme combo at some point. I don't know if it has any like practical competitive application. Maybe to duplicate like Tundra Rhinos and Savannah Highmanes and not Savannah Highmanes, Scavenging Hyenas and stuff like that. Like maybe you just have you have almost an insane game-winning charge hand, but you're not quite there, and then you draw this and play it, and now you have extra copies of stuff that allows you to just burst your opponent out of nowhere. So maybe that's a thing. Maybe it's like a one-of in that style of deck. Oblivitron, this seems worse than Coffin Crasher. For one thing, it's a legendary, which always hurts cards like this. And Hunter doesn't have anything to cheat out with this, in the way that Coffin Crasher had Obsidian Statue to cheat out, which is very powerful. That being said, historically, Hunter's way better at abusing death rattles than Priest, obviously, with like Play Dead, Feign Death, all that stuff. And that being said, all of those cards are leaving, so I don't know where that leads Oblivitron. If I open it, I'll try it in Mech Rattle, because I'm definitely going to try to build a Mech Rattle deck. I don't think it's worth crafting. I don't think it's very good, even in that style of deck. I think it's too slow and clunky and not very powerful, honestly, for what you're getting. But, you know, it exists. Maybe in Wild it could be a thing, where you have, like, Play Dead, you have, like, Sneeds. You know, maybe you can do some gross stuff. Unleash the Beast, I think, is probably the best Hunter card in the set. Maybe Mark Shot. This card is crazy. So again, Rush is really good. 6 mana 5/5 Rush, if they just printed that as a card, that would be a really good card that would see a lot of play. Like, I'm not kidding. like Undasta is a 9 mana 7/7 that is good even when you don't have a beast in hand. Like, it's just good. It's just good to play a big Rush thing to kill whatever your opponent has and develop on the board. It's just powerful. It's always powerful. It's never not powerful. And this lets you do that twice. And then you play Zul'jin, and it summons 2 more 5/5s with Rush. 4 if you had both copies of this. So you can have these massive tempo swings with Zul'jin. It's like Spellstone, except instead of making a bunch of 3/3s that sit there, you're making 5/5s that do something immediately. And that seems crazy. So I think this card's nuts. I think if anything keeps Hunter alive, it's going to be this. And obviously Master's Call, which is still going to be insane. And Varisa Windrunner, interesting. So the weapon is a 2/3, where when you attack, you get spell damage +2 until end of turn, I believe. And that's weird. Hunter doesn't have a good way to use that. You can like rapid fire to deal 6 for 2. That's a thing. It seems like a lot of work to go through to get that. In Wild, you have like Power Shot and the 2 mana Power Shot equivalent, stuff like that. We don't have those in Standard anymore, so I don't know. It's weird timing. It's a weird card in this class. Cool design. Don't know if this is going to do anything. Also, how many Windrunners are there? How many sisters are in this family? I don't know WoW lore. Magic Trick. Worse than Glyph, but it's narrower than Glyph, which means it's more consistent. And it's worth noting for both of these that these are in Mage, so you can play Sorcerer's Apprentice and then instantly play these 1-mana spells. So Sorcerer's Apprentice on 2, instantly play Magic Trick, maybe play whatever you get off of it, or find something else. Pretty reasonable. Ray of Frost, almost a Frostbolt on its own. 2 mana, freeze a guy, deal 2 damage to it. Almost a Frostbolt, can't go face. But then you have the versatility of being able to freeze multiple guys. You can ping multiple guys who are frozen. If a guy's already frozen, you can ping him twice for 4. And again, Sorcerer's Apprentice is a card that exists. So you can play Sorcerer's Apprentice on 2, and then Frostbolt your guy for 2, your opponent's guy, which is not something you can do with Frostbolt, obviously. That's a 3-mana turn. But since both halves of this get the discount, it allows you to cheat out extra mana for big tempo play. So I think Tempo Mage might be, might maybe be a thing. And if it does, these cards are probably going to feed into it. I think Ray of Frost is better than Magic Trick for that, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Khadgar, kind of weird, clunky, hard to use. Mage doesn't really summon minions. Maybe it's good with Power of the Creation, which we'll get to in a second, but yeah, it's just hard to use. It's a weird card. It'd be better if it weren't legendary, but since it is legendary, you can't build around it. And Mage doesn't naturally want to be summoning lots of minions, so where does this go? You know, it's just like, where does it go? Because you can't just artificially build around summoning lots of minions when the payoff is a singleton in your deck. And they keep printing cards like this, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work because that's not how the probability of shuffling a deck works. It just doesn't work out. Magic Dart Frog, another Tempo Mage card. The stat line is super bad. 2 mana, 1/3. It is really bad, but the effect is really good. It's a Knife Juggler for spells, so like a Flame Waker kind of, but it can't go face, which is really important because it allows you to focus down your opponent's board. It's like a one-sided Volcano if you have enough spells. Obviously not as extreme as Volcano, but it's that kind of thing where you can count how much life they have and really finely calculate how to clear their board with 100% certainty. Those are always really powerful. But it's just such a bad stat line. But again, we have Apprentice and cheap spells. So maybe this fits in there. Mana Cyclone, much more reasonable to drop. You play the cheap spells, you get spells back. It's a battle cry, so you get them immediately. And if they're also like more 1-mana spells or whatever, you can play even more for big turns. Work in some like Vex Crows and shit. And it starts to look like a real deck. But yeah, pretty cool card. Conjurer's Calling, unbelievably bad. It's just ridiculously bad. I don't know what this is. It's like a mulch effect, kind of. Mulch was pretty bad. But this is like way worse than mulch because it gives them the stuff on the board. Or you can use it as an evolve effect on your own guys, except instead of evolving them up, you evolve them sideways, but it costs 3 mana. You get to do it twice, but it's like both modes are complete trash. You can maybe combine it with Khadgar, but you're doing a lot of work to do weird, bad stuff. Card's really crazy bad. I might be wrong about this. Maybe it turns out to be like there's some crazy interaction where you just flood the board with big things. But I think this style of deck's just way too unpredictable. The cost is too high. Don't do it. Messenger Raven. So I'd want to compare this to Cabal Courier. Cabal Courier is still a good card. This is obviously a lot less flexible. You can't get spells or weapons or anything. Yeah, but it's better statted. 3 mana, 3/2. Just it's only +1 attack, but that does make quite a difference. And since it's always a mage minion, there's a narrower pool, so there's more control over what you can get. It's just a pretty reasonable card. I don't know who uses it necessarily, but it's just a reasonable card. Kirantor Tricaster is super cool design. The problem with it is that +1 spell damage is not worth +1 cost. +3 spell damage is worth +1 cost, but that's not what's actually happening because Cosmic Anomaly exists, which has the +2 spell damage also for 4 mana without the extra cost. So you're only getting a 3/3 instead of 4/3, so you're getting a smaller minion, and then you have to spend more on your spells for that extra spell damage. And that just seems not at all worth it. It could be that the meta is such that that +1 extra damage is enough that like you consistently hit a crucial break point that allows you to do things with this that you couldn't do with Cosmic Anomaly, and you need that because otherwise you're going to get killed by like Undergrowth Oozes or something. Maybe. But I think probably just play Cosmic Anomaly. Power of Creation. I thought this card was complete garbage until I thought about it more. So Mage has 2 6-mana 3/3s. I've talked about this a lot. And that fucks random 6-drops, and it fucks random Mage discovering 6-drops. Quite a bit. But there's only 2 of them. So even if every time somehow you hit both of those, you hit Meteorologist and Arcanosaur, every time you're still getting another 6-drop, and you just pick that one instead. Most of the time you should have at least one really good 6-drop. Like a Sunwalker or a Cairn or the Safe Guy or just whatever. You know, there's just something reasonable. Even like a Boulder Fist Ogre. 6 mana summon 2 Ogres is just good. Not 6. 8 mana. It's just good. So I think this card's actually quite powerful. And making big minions is more impactful now that, again, the hero cards are going away. The value is more limited. So if you make a bunch of big stuff, you can do more with it. Calicos, 10 mana, 4/12 dragon. Discover a spell, and then you can play a spell. And it can be the spell you discovered. Really powerful. So you can play this in Flame Strike, you can play this in Power of Creation, you can play this in Blizzard, you can play this in Pyroblast him in the face, play this, and even just like discover a Frost Nova and play it just to like pull ahead. If they don't kill it, which is kind of hard to kill a 4/12 dragon, just on the fly, especially if your opponent gets to play an additional spell with it while developing it. If they don't deal with it, you get to do it again, so it just generates more tempo. The card's extremely powerful. Just extremely powerful. There's nothing more to say there. Desperate Measures. Random Paladin Secrets are really bad, so playing 2 random Paladin Secrets sounds really bad. If Paladin had like mana discounts, this could be really good, because you could have 0 mana play 2 Paladin Secrets, but Paladin doesn't have that. It does work with Secret Keeper, obviously. You can play like Secret Keeper on 1 and then Desperate Measures twice on 2 to have a 3/4. Right? Yeah, 3/4. But only be down 1 card. But I don't think that's worth it. It's just Paladin Secrets on average are very bad. You wanna really control which ones you're getting, because so many of them aren't worth anything. Never Surrender is pretty good. AoE has gotten worse, and so you're buffing your guys in response to an AoE. It means they're probably going to survive a lot of times. Or even if your opponent's just trying to do other things, right? Just single target removal, cast a card draw spell, cast a healing spell, whatever. It just makes you guys bigger. It makes them harder to clear with AoE, with value trades, with whatever. We'll probably talk about... Let's just talk about all the secret cards at once. We're just gonna go this way. I don't think standard Secret Paladin is gonna be a thing. I don't see it happening. I don't see the support being there. I don't think the secrets themselves are actually good enough. This is a pretty good one, but I don't think the other ones are. It's like this and Noble Sack is all you have. Maybe Auto Defense Matrix. And nothing else. But you do have, like, the payoff is there. You have a Fiery War Axe. 2-mana Fiery War Axe is obviously broken. They had to nerf it. So this card's really good. And Commander Rissa is really good. There's really no cost to play her. You get to double the thing. I don't think this is going to do anything in Standard. I'd be very surprised if it does. But I do think it's going to revitalize the archetype in Wild, potentially. So in Wild, you have Avenge, you have Competitive Spirit, Noble Sack, like a bunch of stuff that is really good to trigger twice. Even Never Surrender can work in there as a one of. Mysterious Blade, giving them a big, powerful weapon on turn 2 sounds scary. Yeah, this is just like all stuff they want to be doing. And it's like a tier 2 tempo deck even now. So I think giving them a little more support might make it about as attractive as Baku Paladin, probably still a little less. Yeah. Lifeforge Blessing, I don't know how to evaluate this. Lifesteal is pretty powerful, but it's very expensive. And if you compare it to Holy Light, I think it's called, you need to get at least like 6 healing out of this to be breaking even, basically. And it can't heal your minions. It can only heal your face. So it's less flexible. It requires minions to work. So it's kind of giving me like Blessing of Wisdom vibes, where you need stuff to stick, and then you can have them do stuff by attacking. That being said, like, Lifesteal's really powerful, and you get 2 copies. I don't know. There's probably cool stuff you can do with this. You can slap it on a Blackguard to do really cool stuff. In Wild. Fortunately, he's rotating. Blackguard can't go face, though, right? I think it's only the board. But you can wipe their board every time it attacks, which is cool. Yeah. Weird card. Bronze Herald. So it's an understated dragon, but 3-mana 3/2 is not like I can't play this bad, and 4-mana 4/4s aren't I can't play this bad. So you get 3 bad cards, but they're not so bad you can't use them, which makes this interesting. When you package a bunch of bad cards together, they typically become a good card. You put a lot of mediocre value in one card slot, and it makes that card slot itself come out to be quite valuable, even though the individual pieces are really bad. Think of like Sludge Belcher. Excuse me. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting card. I think it's pretty cool. Call to Adventure. You draw a thing, you buff the thing. Pretty cool. It's just card draw plus hand buffing. This would be a lot better if Righteous Protector weren't rotating, because obviously turn 4, draw, and then play a 3/3 Divine Shield Taunt would be very powerful. Obviously, that's still an option in Wild, though. So I look forward to trying it there. I don't know exactly what you do with that in Standard right now, but I mean, it's card draw, it's hand buffing. It's targeted card draw. Targeted card draw is like better than normal, and 2 mana is about what you'd expect to play for +2/+2. So it's like Bronze Herald, where you're combining like mediocre things into one card slot. 1 mana is about what drawing a card is worth. 2 mana is about what the buff is worth. So you're getting both of those things. But this is targeted, which improves it. So it's like you're getting slightly more value than the mana cost. So it's probably good. Dragon Speaker is a really good card. 5 mana 3/5. Even if you just buff one guy, +3/+3, like that's just a good card. You've played enough stats. You got enough out of it. The problem in Standard is that all the good dragons are rotating. I don't know what you're supposed to buff with this. I was expecting, when I saw these spoilers, I was expecting more dragons in the set, but they kind of like forgot. So I don't think Dragon Paladin's going to be a thing now. Maybe down the line, and probably in Wild. You'll have some sort of hand buff Dragon Paladin thing. The card is just obviously powerful. It's just there's nothing to buff, so it's weird. Duel, yeah, it's a dirty rat sort of recruit hybrid removal effect thing. Really cool card. It's not much more to say about that. It's just cool card. You play it with big minions, try to kill their small minions or their combo pieces. Nazari. So Tree of Life is a good card. Tree of Life has seen play. Tree of Life was actually good enough that it defined a specific variant of Mildruid for a while. Like, Mildruid existed before that, and then that was printed, and there was a new version specifically built around how powerful Tree of Life was. So putting Tree of Life on a body for 1 extra mana seems really good. You're getting a 1 mana 4/12, and it's a dragon. Sometimes it's a 7/15 if you can find a way to play this card. Yeah, it's just you play it in a deck that would want a Tree of Life, and then you also get this dragon. It's not complicated. It's you get a good card and you attach a dragon to it. Cool. These cards go really well together. People have talked about this to death because they're like the first card spoiled. But you can reduce something's attack to 0 and then kill it for free. Something to point out about that is Priest kind of has a lot of cheap spells right now and a lot of rewards for playing lots of spells. There's like Grave Horror, there's Sand Drudge, there's always Violet Teacher. Violet Teacher, and then you have the 2 mana Akanai plus Regenerate, so you can develop a 3/2 and bolt a guy. You have these. Like, you always have Power Word Shield, Northshire Cleric, Circle of Healing stuff. Like, there's a lot of ways to play a lot of minions out, develop a lot of stats, play a lot of cheap spells in Priest right now. I don't know if there's a Tempo Priest deck that can actually work, but again, AoE is much more limited post-rotation than it is right now. So a lot of these kind of incremental value decks, like board fighting decks, get better. And I mean, even outside of that, these are just good cards, right? These are just good cards. Especially Forbidden Words is better, but they're both really good. Actually, I don't even know. This is good with Cabal. These cards are just really good. I think Control Priest is going to be really, really powerful. Priest is one of the few classes that has AoE, like great AoE, because they're keeping Mass Hysteria. Losing Shadow Visions hurts a lot. Priest has been relying on Shadow Visions for so long. It's been 2 years, and it has literally propped the class up by itself. Like, Priest was really, really a low-tier class for a long time. And then they printed Shadow Visions, and it's been like one of the strongest classes for 2 years. Just because Shadow Visions is so fucking insane. And all of their cards are so specific in what they do, that you need something like that to make them work that well. So, Priest might struggle again, but if they can overcome that, they still have the Mass Hysteria, they still have really powerful things like this guy, which we're going to get to in a second. I don't know. Conscriptor, 2 mana 2/2. Get a lackey when he dies. It's just okay. It's good stats. It's just like maybe it goes in the Tempo Priest deck, right? It's like I don't know where else you'd put this. It's not that attractive in this class. Priest doesn't have a good way to use bodies like this. Shadowy Figure. So we've had the ability to copy Death Rattles cheaply before with like Mirage Collar and stuff. I don't think we've had a way to do it for 2 mana. Generally, when you knock even just 1 point off the mana cost of a combo card, a card that has to synergize with something else, it opens up way more possibilities, right? So, my mouth's getting really dry. I'm trying to do this all in one big take, though. I don't want to edit shit. Yeah. So maybe this enables something. I don't think in standard it will, at least not right now. Because like everything's rotating. Cube is rotating. All the stuff you'd want to copy is going away. But, you know. Cool. Cool, cheaper, whatever. Madame Lazul, very powerful. She gives you information. She gives you value. She gives you card selection. It's everything you want. Put it in every deck. Except for Resurrect decks, obviously. Henge Clan, Shade Quill, 4 mana, 4/7, with no drawback whatsoever. I don't see anything else on this card. I just see 4 mana, 4/7. That's great. I'm putting that in anything that wants to play lots of stats on the board in the early game in Priest. Unsleeping Soul. So this is the card I was talking about with the 3 mana, 5/6 neutral guy. So you can play that guy and then silence him to be swinging with a 5/6 while developing another 4 mana 5/6, which sounds like a really powerful opening, especially if the meta is going to be defined by like these grindy minion combat matches. I don't know that it will, but it definitely looks that way. And it's worth pointing out 5/6s are really good against 3/5s, and you have to find a way to kill 3/5s in one hit. From turn 7 and later. So it's a really weird timing. It's really weird timing to push Silence Priest. Because again, Humongous Razor Leaf is leaving, Shadow Visions is leaving. But yeah, I mean this is just a powerful card in that archetype. So it might come together. Convincing Infiltrator, this is Obsidian Statue for 4 less mana. It doesn't have Lifesteal. It doesn't need Lifesteal because it's coming down on turn 5 instead of turn 9 when you're on the brink of death. So this is just Obsidian Statue for 4 less mana. This card's completely insane, and is another one of the main reasons I think Control Priest might be very powerful in the new meta. Because like it's hard to just walk through a 2/6 taunt. Like it's not that big, but it's going to slow you down. And then to get the deadly shot on the backswing is just powerful. Katrina Muerte. It's like a not Yogg-Saron. It's like a Yasharaj, basically. Except instead of pulling something from your deck, it pulls from your pool of dead minions. So you just put it in a Resurrect Priest thing. I'm definitely going to try this in Wild. I honestly... I don't know what I would cut for this. I think I'd prefer Yasharaj because it helps you get stuff online faster. I honestly really don't like Lich King in that deck. I really don't. Whenever I make the deck, I usually end up cutting him for something else. So maybe she'll take his slot. It's just like you get stuff like a Death Coil and Frostmourne, and you're like, man, this card's broken. And then you get games where you get nothing but like Army of the Dead, and you're like, wow, this is so bad. So yeah, I mean, it's just a powerful card. Just a powerful card, obviously. Mass Resurrection, worse than Spellstone. In Standard, you don't have a Spellstone, so maybe use this. I don't see this working in Wild. It's not duplicates, or it's not... it allows duplicates, rather, which is a key difference. And you don't have to charge it up. It's pretty easy to charge up Spellstones, though. So in Wild, I don't think this will see any play. I could be wrong, though. Okay. Daring Escape, worse than Shadow Step, unless you're bouncing tons of stuff that wants to be bounced. I don't know what deck does that. Togwaggle Scheme, worse than Gang Up. Typically... So if you think like Wild Mill Rogue, typically you want to be playing the Gang Ups really as soon as you draw them. You don't have a lot of hand space. It's one of the cards you can really dump right away. You don't have a lot of space to just hold on to something for a long period of time. So the mana discount's not that relevant because you have prep. They both cost 0. And it takes too long to get going. That being said, we'll talk about it again with this guy when we get to the end. Rushing Spider Tanks are good. Great. Evil Miscreant. Makes lackeys. You can turn him into a 5/5 with Cold Blood. Just good. Just good. Lackeys are good. We'll talk about him with this guy. His Clan Burglar. Discover a spell from another class. 4 mana, 4/3. It's just a great card. Reasonable stats. Generates value. You always get something from another class. Even if it gets another rogue, that's very good. Excuse me. And it's a pirate. This is crucial because it allows you to make really effective raiding party draw engines outside of tempo decks. Like in your Thief Rogue test decks, which is really, really important because raiding party is insane. Vendetta is also insane. If you're holding a thing, this is 0 mana deal 4. That's fucking nuts. It's really easy to hold a card from another class. Cool. Waggle Pick, pretty good weapon. 4 mana 4/2 is just par for the course. It's kind of weird, the whole bounce thing. Kind of weird. There's a lot of bounce. I don't know what you're bouncing, but, you know, whatever. Cool. It's just a weird card. Heist Baron, Togwaggle. Yeah, so you want to have lackeys from somewhere. Probably this guy. Maybe the 2 mana 1/1 neutral guy. Maybe if you're desperate. But, like, it's not that hard a condition to meet, and if you meet it, it's totally insane. So you get to choose any Marin the Fox treasure. All 4 of them are ridiculous. And you just choose the one you want, so you're always getting the most ridiculous one for the situation. It's just a game-winning card. There's noises in the distance. Unidentified Contract. I don't think this is as bad as people think it is, but I think it is bad in Rogue. So this is like a slow single target removal high value card. Most of the modes, I can't remember all the modes. Most of them are 2-for-1s. It's like there's like the backstab. You get a copy of the thing. There's the 2 coins, and I can't remember what the last one is. Oh, summon a poisonous guy. Yeah. So like all of those except for the coins are 2-for-1s at least. The backstab sometimes a 3-for-1, right? So you're not the backstab, betrayal. So you're killing a guy and multiple guys. You kill a guy and get a guy. You kill a guy and get a guy that's going to kill another guy. Like that. Those are all really powerful. And then the coin one, you get some of the mana investment back. The problem with putting that in Rogue is a really hard time utilizing these late game value cards, right? Rogue has plenty of late game value with academic espionage, tests, stuff like that. The problem is they have 0 AoE, they have 0 healing really, taunts. They don't have ways to not be dead. So it's really hard to use a card like this. I think the card itself is good. I think if it were in another class, it would be much more interesting. But in Rogue, it's kind of hard to use. You can prep it, but it's just like, just prep Walk the Plank instead, right? This guy seems really bad. Tack Noswhisker. That being said, I really like this guy plus a highly charged scheme plus Pogo Hopper. I really like that. It perfectly lines up. 10 mana. You shuffle a bunch of Pogo Hoppers in your deck. You get a bunch in your hand. So if you just get to turn 10 as a rogue with these cards, you can just start playing your giant Jade Bunnies and then you kill your opponent. Again, it's hard to get that far as a rogue. But if you can, like, that seems like a legitimate win condition. So I think these are both bad cards, and I think they justify each other to maybe make a reasonable Tier 3, Tier 2 deck. Alright. 0 mana Evolve, single target. We knew they were going to make this one day. It's not very good, but it's reasonable. Sludge Slurper, 1 mana 2/1 Murloc is just good. Overload is reasonable. It gives you a Lackey. Lackeys are great. You can play the Lackey on turn 2, so you're not falling behind. You're pretty happy about that. Murlocs are good. More Murloc stuff. Overload can actually be good right now. They have Lickum, and you also have Thunderhead. Is that the card? The 4 mana 3/5. So there are actually pretty reasonable payoffs for playing Overload. This card's just great. Underbelly Angler. So is this where the oozes are? Is Underbelly like a place? I don't know. Anyways, Underbelly Angler, I guess that's where all the innkeepers are and the baristas. They're all in the underbelly with the slimes and the fish people. and the evil kobolds. I don't know what the fuck is going on in this set, man. Yeah. 2 mana, 2/3 Murloc. Whenever you play a Murloc, add a Murloc to your hand. It's just great. If you're playing Murlocs, you put this in. Bitches Brew. It's like Forbidden Healing. So 10 mana, heal for 20. That's great. Forbidden Healing was great. This is even better because you can break it up. You can break up how much you're spending on it. It's only in increments of 2 rather than increments of 1. But you can do it like in the middle of a turn. You don't have to spend all of your mana when you decide to commit it. This really drives me fucking crazy, though, like more than it should. This is an Echo card. Echo is a mechanic. They keyworded this. They keyworded this, man. This is Echo. This should be Echo Restore 4 Health. Like, what the fuck is going on? Just write Echo. Why does this say this? They're like so insistent on never revisiting any old mechanics other than like Rush, Lifesteal, and Discover. Those are the only ones. Everything else, they're like, we got this new mechanic, guys, and we're never going to mention it again. Even though we just printed a new card using it, we won't speak of it. All right? Echo is dead to us. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Anyways, we've ranted a lot about wording. But this card's great. Soul of the Murloc. These cards are always bad. Where you give you guys a death rattle to summon shit. This is like the best one. It's cheap. It gives you Murlocs. Maybe, finally, something will happen. But these cards are like always bad. So I don't know. Scargill. This card looks good. Murlocs cost 1. Something costs 1 is powerful. Powerful. The problem is the Murlocs are already really cheap. 4 mana, 4/4s are really bad. So I think this card's probably actually a lot worse than it looks. In Wild, you can play like Scargill plus Old Murkai, Scargill plus Finja, even just Scargill plus War Leader, which is also in Standard. Pretty powerful turn 5 high tempo turns where you play like a 4/4 plus another 4-drop or 5-drop or something, right? But in Standard, all the Murlocs are cheap, so I don't know. I just don't know what you're pairing with this. I get you can cheat out with the quest. I just realized you can play the 8/8 for 1, and then everything that he makes is also 1. But like, when are you playing the Murloc quest? Like, come on. Yeah, this is a very powerful effect. But I think it's actually a really terrible effect. Just because of the card pool for this thing. Which is why they can get away with it, obviously. Otherwise it'd be broken. Hagatha's Scheme. I think this card's really good. I think this card's going to see a lot of play. I think this card is also way worse than people think it is. If you compare it to Volcano, I think it's generally worse. It's generally a lot worse. So Volcano always does 15 when you draw it. 15 is enough to kill like any board just about. Volcano's really fucking good, and Volcano has barely been good enough to justify Control Shaman as a thing that exists in the meta. This is a lot worse. I don't think this is going to suddenly make Control Shaman work. If both of them existed at the same time, maybe. But they don't. When you draw this, it's unplayable. 5 mana deal 1 damage to everything is garbage. You have to hold this for at least... Does it upgrade at the end of turn? So if you hold it for like 3 turns, it would go to 4? I don't know. You have to hold it for several turns before it gets to a high enough damage value that it starts to do anything impactful. And that's normally not what you want, right? As a control player against like a tempo... against a faster opponent, an aggro tempo opponent, you're frantically trying to push them back, right? And if you can't play your AoE because it's only dealing like a couple points of damage for the entire main portion of the game, which is like turns 1 through 6, these are like the critical defining turns in these matchups, and you never have the option to play this, even once you get to like turn 5 and 6, unless you had it in your opening hand, it's not playable. So you're relying entirely on like Lightning Storm. That being said, this is one of the only cards in the format that can 100% guarantee wipe Underbelly Ooze off the board. You just hold it for 5 or more turns, problem solved. Unless they like rampage it or something. Something stupid happens, you know? So that, I think, justifies this more than anything else. Because the way I'm thinking about the meta is everything revolves around Underbelly Ooze because the card is so fucking insane. Like, it's actually ridiculously powerful. We'll just wait and see, but I swear that card is going to dominate everything. And this kills it. So, you know, maybe Shaman can be a thing. They can also run Underbelly Ooze on their own because they have Beakered Lightning. So you can just play your Underbelly Ooze, 0 mana, Whirlwind. Other stuff happens. I don't know. That's actually kind of funny. You could just play this as a Whirlwind when you draw it without upgrading it to make more of your own oozes. Anyway, Buck Morford, 5 mana Malagos. Great meme combo card. Hagatha, expensive 5/5, then you make a 5/5. You build a 5/5 basically that knows some spells. I don't know exactly how the interface for this works, but I think it's kind of like Kazakus. So it's probably pretty good. Way worse than Kazakus. Like, not even close to as good as Kazakus. But that's okay. She doesn't have to be. She can be her own thing. Excuse me. Should be good. Walking Fountain. Alakir is trashed here now. This is... Alakir's never been that great. But this is so much better. So much for being an Elemental Lord. So yeah, 8 mana, kill 2 guys, heal for 8. Seems really good. Rush is really powerful, Wind Fury, Lifesteal. All these things combined. Really powerful. Even if you just like can only trade into one guy. Just like 8 mana, heal for 8 and kill your guy. As the worst case scenario. There are way worse case scenarios in cards that have actually seen competitive play. I think this card is just totally reasonable to put as like the top end in a deck. It's like an Obsidian Statue type card, right? You have, this isn't your whole game plan. You have other ways to not die, but then you get to the late game and then you just have these big, crazy anti-aggro, fuck your shit up pushes. And if the game is very value tradey, everyone's just trying to get incremental board advantages, it makes it that much easier to come in and swoop down and kill 2 things. Which I think the meta's gonna be like that. It's gonna be Tempo decks doing that, and then Underbelly Ooze on the top end. And then maybe, like, Control Shaman with Scheme above them even later, or something like that. I don't know. Or Warlocks with Twisting Nethers. Evil Genius, so they're pushing, like, Egg Zulok kind of stuff. So this is pretty good. You eat a 1/1, you eat a Scarab Egg, or whatever. You make 2 guys, you get a 2/2. It's just great. It's a great card. Plot Twist, very interesting. I wish it'd be in a different class, but, I mean, it's a very cool card. Hopefully they'll reprint this in other classes at some point, this effect anyways, because I really like this effect in games. You can do some cool stuff with it. You can play it with Solarium, so you draw 3, and then you shuffle those back, and you're basically just circumventing the downside of Solarium to just increase your hand size for 1 mana. So that's really powerful. You can also go infinite with this. You have 2 Elex, 2 Plot Twist. You play Elec, you play Twat. Twat Twist. You shuffle in your hand twice, so you get 2 more Elex, 2 more Plot Twists. You rinse and repeat. It's cumbersome because you have to draw all 4 copies every single time you want to play it. Unlike Dead Man's Hand, where you just have the 2 Dead Man's Hands, and one of them just stays in your hand forever. But it's a bit more mana efficient than the Glinda Infinite, so you can Glinda, Baleful Banker her, and then Baleful Banker the Baleful Banker, which does the same thing. But that's your entire turn. This only costs 5 mana, so you have 5 more mana to do something else. Yeah. Also, you cycle through stuff. You can do stuff with this card, which we'll get to in a second, but you can heal multiple times that way. I think it's a meme deck, but I'm definitely going to try to see if there's anything there. But outside of that, the card itself just seems pretty cool. Reform Scheme, super overrated. Fiendish Circle sees zero play. I've never seen anyone play it ever anywhere on ladder, and I play in the dumpster tier most of the time. This card is so much worse than that. So much worse. It's not even 4 mana summon 4/1/1s. It's 3 mana summon 1/1/1s. You have to hold it for 4 turns to get to that point. And it's like, yeah, if you hold it long enough, you can fill your entire board. But this goes into like a Zoo lock. Zoo is an archetype that dumps its entire hand. And then the plan is to life tap every single turn and play basically everything. You're playing 2 cards a turn, dumping your whole hand. This does not fit into that strategy. It just doesn't. You want to put cards in your deck that you can play quickly to pressure your opponent to fight for the board. You don't want to hold on to a card for like 5 turns to make a bunch of 1/1s that are just going to die to like a whirlwind effect or something, you know? Very bad. Ridiculously bad. Not the worst scheme, though, amazingly enough. Eager Underling. It's pretty cool. It's like a Fungomancer that you eat. It's just if you need even more things to gobble up. I think there's probably cheaper ways to do this. But like 4 mana, buff your guys by +4/+4. And get a free death trigger. Like without consuming an actual minion that's going to attack. I don't know, it's reasonable. It's like the 30th card in the archetype. I think you probably have access to better resources than this, but it's something to consider. Inferno, this is Fan of Knives, except instead of drawing a card, you buff your demons by +1 attack. Fan of Knives is a bad card even in Rogue. It's a lot worse in classes that don't have prep. And buffing your demons by +1 attack is worse than drawing a card. So I think this card is extremely bad. Broodmother. Yeah, this card's great. So you draw it, you heal for free. You can shuffle it back in to draw it multiple times with plot twists. Just playing a 6 mana 4/6 taunt is actually totally reasonable. We've seen this with Ren. You can just play her 3/6 and you're fine. Like, it's not as bad as you'd think it'd be. And this has the benefit. So the main way you lose against faster opponents with a slow deck is that you can't stop the bleeding fast enough. Like, you just don't have the mana, you don't have the time to just not be dead, you know? So a 0 mana heal for 4 is really powerful when it's not costing a card or anything. You just get 4 extra health just cause it buys you that little extra time, that little extra efficiency to stabilize. It's not like a show stealer kind of card. This isn't like the cornerstone of any deck, but it's just a great tool. Destroy all the guys, summon guys for the guys you killed. So you want to make a big board without playing any minions, playing any small minions. And I don't know how you do that other than playing like the worst Warlock card in Standard. So maybe I'd put Inferno even above Reform's game. So this card seems really impractical. I don't know how you're supposed to use that. Archvillain Reform, excellent. You put him in your Zoo deck, you play him on turn 7. Now your Zoo deck is a 30 legendary deck, and you just beat your opponent to death at the end. Cool. Fellord Betrug, it's a cool card, kind of a janky card, but you can play him turn 10 with Plot Twist to draw a bunch of stuff. It's interesting. I don't know what you do with it exactly. If you work in like Death Rattle stuff, it's probably better in Wild, right? Where you have like Void Colors and stuff, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what you do with this, but it's cool. Jumbo Imp. So if this were a normal giant, I think this would still be fairly bad. Because it's hard to summon lots of demons. Like, even in Warlock doesn't have that many imp generators. Again, you have, like, 1, and it's terrible. There's, like, not really... Warlock doesn't make that many imps. which is their main way to summon lots of demons and have them all die, right? So even if this were just a giant, I think it'd be pretty bad. But it's worse than that. It's actually like a corridor creeper. But it has to be only demons. So it's like the worst of all worlds. I might be wrong. Maybe there's enough demon density that this does function just like as a corridor creeper, where it's like almost anything, any minion of yours that dies, but it's not counting your opponent's minions, right? So it's like it's not even that good. I think it's just way too slow for what you're getting. But if you can discount it by enough consistently, then you're just playing a really cheap 8/8, and it's really good. I don't see how you do that, but if you can do it, then it's good. All right, we're almost done. Improved morale. It's like Blood to Ichor, but you get a lackey instead of a 2/2. Sometimes you'd rather have a 2/2. Sometimes you'd rather have a lackey. Either way, that was a good card. This is probably a good card. I think this is probably slightly better than Blood to Ichor, but it's close. Also, this definitely goes in the Underbelly Ooze deck, right? It's just a great way. You can just play that, improve morale, whirlwind. Now you've got a full board of crazy shit going on. Sweeping Strikes, give a guy Cleave. That's really powerful. Cleave is one of the best non-keyworded keyword abilities that they really should just keyword at some point. But yeah, it's a very powerful effect. Probably like at best a one of. I don't know what deck wants this, but AoE, again, kind of a broken record. AoE is all of its leaving, and the only one they printed is like Hagatha's Scheme and the neutral taunt guy. So this is just another AoE out. Warrior doesn't really need it because they have Brawl, Dynamatic, Super Collider, stuff like that. But still, potentially powerful card. Vicious Scrap Hound, insultingly bad. I don't know what the fuck this is. You compare it to like Eternium Rover and the what's the Kobold Armorsmith guy? 2-mana 2/2 gain armor for all the people. Compared to either of those are both like fringe mediocre cards that don't really see play. They've seen small amounts of play. And they're both so much better than this. Like light years better than this. I don't know what the fuck this card is. Like this is so bad that it almost seems like an error. Like it's supposed to be a 3/2 or a 2/3 or something. Or something else is going on. I don't know. This just doesn't look like a real card. It's so bad. Then again, Holomancer was printed, so, you know. They'll print anything. Clockwork Goblin, I think this card's great. I think it's terrible in, like, an Iron Juggernaut style, like, control warrior deck, which seems to be how most people are evaluating the bombs. But I think that's wrong. I think the way you're supposed to think about them is that you put them in, like, a fast pirate warrior style deck. Something that's going to hit your opponent in the face a lot. And you just work these into the curve. It's real cheap. 3-mana 3/3 is not great. It's a bad card, but you play it and then your opponent gets, like, lava bursted at some point later in the game, and it kind of justifies its inclusion in that way. I think it's a pretty reasonable card. Obviously, you're not guaranteed to get the bomb to go off, but it's not a huge cost. It's just a 3-mana 3/3 mech, sometimes a relevant tag. Yeah, I don't think you ever play these in a control deck and just like wait for your opponent to die to bombs. I think that's a stupid plan. But I think if you just fit these into like a tempo or mid-range or aggro deck, then they become much more attractive. Dr. Boom's Scheme is just offensively bad as well. I don't know what this is. I think this is what happened. The art doesn't make sense. It's showing bombs, and this gains armor. I think what happened is that this card did something completely different. Completely different. Because why would bombs give you armor, right? I think this did something like maybe it shuffled bombs into their deck. Maybe it made boom bots. It did something else, and they could not balance it. It was like just way too good, and we got too close to the release date, and they're like, alright, fuck it, we can't fix this, it gains armor now. And they just made it an unplayably bad card, and it was too late to change the art. and it just is what it is. I think that's what happened. I don't know, but just looking at it, like, this is obviously so fucking bad, and the art makes no sense. It's showing a bunch of bombs, and they gain you armor for some reason. Like, it just makes sense to me that I think they just fucked up. They like, procrastinated on some design, on balancing it. They couldn't figure it out, and then they just gave up and made this. This card's horrendous. You have to hold this for, like, like a 10 plus turns to even be remotely okay. When is that ever worth it, man? Just play Shield Block. Just play, like, Ironhide or something. You have to hold this for 5 turns to be 4 times worse than Ironhide. Think about that. You have to hold this for 5 turns to be 4 times worse than Ironhide. Holy shit, man. Holy shit. It's so obscenely bad. But I think they just did this because they fucked up and they couldn't fix some other problem. I would rather have this card exist than, like, 4 mana, shuffle 10 bombs into your opponent's deck, and then the game's over. So I guess that's fine. Whatever. I don't know what they tried to make it do, but it probably wasn't this. Omega Devastator. The card's just great. It's a Yeti. Yeti mech. Yetis are hard to kill. And it's going into Ziliax. It's also going into Dynamatic, and it doesn't get hit by Dynamatic. So it's just like, it's a really obnoxious threat on curve, and then later in the game it just kills a guy. This card's great. I think Mech Warrior, Control Warrior is going to be some sort of thing. Because Dr. Boom and Hagatha are the only Death Knights that, like, generate recurring value, and Dr. Boom's the only one that has literally infinite value just on his own. So, plus they have Warpath, Super Collider, bunch of really powerful stuff. Brawl is one of the best answers to Underbelly Ooze. I think Control Warrior is going to be a thing. Possibly even like combining the two, like Underbelly Ooze, Control, some sort of thing. And this should be right at home there. Wrench Caliber, this is like this. I think you put it in like a Pirate Warrior style deck. Like, this card on its own is 4 mana, 16 face damage eventually. Obviously, you don't always get that, but it's just a reasonable card. You upgrade it, it's even more. You just keep punching them in the face. You replace, like, Death's Bite or whatever you have in your Wild Pirate Warrior with this, and you just go to town. I think this is the best bomb card they printed. New Dr. Boom, very underwhelming. So, Dr. Boom has kind of a weird history. Dr. Boom was, like, the guy. Dr. Boom was, like, the greatest card ever back in the day. In terms of hype, in terms of results, he was okay. He was not bad. He was okay. He was an okay card. It wasn't as good as everyone thought. It was just fine. It was just fine. And here's the thing, Dr. Boom's actually better now than he was then because BGH got nerfed. BGH cost 5 because it was a 2 of in every deck because Dr. Boom was in every deck because of the hype. So most of the time you'd play Dr. Boom and he'd just get BGH immediately and you'd just pay 7 mana for 2 Boom bots. And then they nerfed BGH, so Dr. Boom is way better now than he used to be. And he sees literally no play at all in Wild. None. None whatsoever. Now, Wild and Standard are different. They're very different formats. I think if they printed Dr. Boom in this set, like a reprint, it would be pretty good. It would be a good card. It wouldn't be like the best card in Standard. It would be a good card. But this is a worse version of that. This is just a War Golem. You have to work to make him as good as Dr. Boom, who is and was a mediocre card that no longer sees play. So you have to work to make a card that nobody's using. If you work really hard, you can make it better. And I could be wrong, and maybe it's way easier to fill your opponent's deck with bombs than it looks like. If you can consistently summon 6 Boombots with this, for example, it's completely insane. It's just like game-winning every time. So if that's a thing, then I'll eat my words. I'm totally wrong, and this is like one of the best cards in the set. If you can always get 6 Boombots, I think realistically you're usually going to get 0 to 2 Boombots. Like that's what you're looking at, and that's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I think he's very bad. I think he's very, very bad. Just play the hero card, pretend this version doesn't exist, and you'll be happier. These last 2 cards will go fast. Dimensional Ripper, you summon 2 copies of a guy in your deck, so you want to play this with big guys, but you're spending 10 mana on it. Typically, in these recruit-style decks, you want to spend less mana than the cost of the thing you're making, so this is like a value generator recruit card rather than a cheated out card, which is a interesting take, but I don't know what you're cheating out. And the timing of these is really weird because all the Recruit Warrior cards are leaving. So your other tools, which were better than these, like Gather Your Party, I think, and Woe Cleaver, were a lot better than Dimensional Ripper and Boom Reaver, and those are gone. So I don't know. Those couldn't make a deck work, so I don't know how these are supposed to make a deck work. If all 4 were in Standard at one time, maybe we'd have something. It's just... Again, it's like the Silence Priest stuff, where it's weird timing. It's just really weird timing. I feel like a lot of these cards should have been on Rastakon's Rumble or something. But yeah, it seems pretty bad. It's a big value generator, and value's more important now, so maybe it's better than it looks, but I think it's bad. Boom Raver, you play the guy, he's a big 7/9, you summon the thing, you give the thing rush. Alright. It's just... Yeah, it's alright. You could play this, like, without making a big warrior deck, and, like, this is just your top end, and it's just okay. You just play a 7/9, you draw a card, you give it rush. It's like a Yeti or something. I don't know. I'm not seeing either of these being that powerful. I could be misjudging them. This would be good to get off of Omega Assembly sometimes, although it does pull you closer to Fatigue, which is kind of a downside, especially now that Direhorn is going away. But that's it. So that was like 5 hours, right? Yeah, that was a 5-hour video. I'm just going to upload. I was going to say I'm going to upload this VOD. I'm not doing this live. I was going to do this live. This is a YouTube video. Yeah, if you watched that, good on you. If you didn't, I understand. But that's the set. I'm pretty excited. Honestly, I think it's a really good set. I'm not getting my hopes up too much, though. And if this meta sucks, I'm probably just going to quit Hearthstone for the rest of the year until they figure out their shit. But Underbelly Ooze, this is the MVP. I'm going to call it right now. This is the best card in the entire set. It's going to warp the entire meta. It's going to be new Patron Warrior. Because Warrior, even aside from Whirlwind effects, Warrior just has like the best cards for dealing with boards, other than Priest with Mass Hysteria and Shaman with Hagatha's Scheme, which is really slow. So I think Warrior's just going to get way better. Plus, they have the only infinite value hero card now. They have really powerful mechs that synergize with one another, and they can abuse this. Like, even like this with Dynamatic, right? You just give this a stick, you play a Dynamatic, you know, it's just... all the pieces that you want to put in your deck, they just work together naturally. You just want to run Warpath, you want to run Dynamatic, you probably want to run the new Improved Morale. So yeah, that's probably what I'm going to be playing. That's probably what's going to be dominant. I don't know. We'll see on Tuesday. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.